Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo.
I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam DL.
Hello.
And we are here with, I guess, another episode of this podcast that
Indeed
we do,
we are.
where we talk about interesting topics that are a little bit scary-ish. What is your topic?
So this week I'm going to be covering 4th of July incidents, I think I'll call them. Not quite disasters, but definitely some scary stuff. We've covered like disaster stuff before, and I have one, because I have several of these, that's kind of more like a disaster, but the other ones are kind of fun, lighthearted, considering we're coming up on 4th of July, so.
Yeah, I'm starting to see all those fireworks stands pop up in
They're
all the
everywhere.
parking lots.
I'm starting to hear them at night, too, which sucks. But,
oh, yeah.
What about you? What are you going to be covering this episode?
I'm going to be covering the Chicago Tylenol murders. I am so surprised we haven't covered it yet.
She thought we did, actually.
Yeah,
she made me search
I
it
totally
multiple
thought we
times.
did.
Robin also does this thing. I don't know how many of you have roommates or significant others who ask a question aloud and then look at you waiting for you to Google it on your phone while they're holding their phone. And it happens to me a lot. But I had to search for topics we've done previously to see if we've covered this one. We have not. And shout out to Meadows, who posted this on the Spooky Friends group that got us talking about it. So I look forward to hearing about that horrible thing that happened. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to be covering 4th of July this week. I really wanted to focus on this upcoming holiday because it really did used to be my favorite, like absolute favorite holiday to celebrate.
Why did it used to be? Why is it not anymore?
Well, I like Christmas a lot more because I like family togetherness a bit more. Back in the day when I was a kid, though, this had like a cookout. All my family was there, and I got to blow shit up. And now as an adult, I would much rather watch a fireworks show than be the person putting on the show. So it kind of shifted a little bit. And Christmas has like different food that's also very good. It's a bit more chill, and I just have a better time with Christmas, I think, than 4th of July nowadays.
I just like that it's cold.
It is nice that it's colder because, like, living in Vegas, 4th of July versus Christmas is, like, just complete polar opposites of the spectrum.
Yep.
And one of them is, like, you could have the windows open and be comfortable. And the other one is, like, hide inside so the sun doesn't kill us all. So that's what we're coming up on in the next 6 days. And, like we all know, the 4th of July is, of course, an American holiday. But I really feel like it could be a worldwide celebration, as it is the day that the world united behind Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, and Bill Pullman to defeat the alien invasion on July 4th, 1996, as we all know. So, really thought Robin would think that joke was funny, but she's just staring off blankly into space.
I've still never seen Independence Day.
It's a crime. It's like you never went to history class. They teach kids about this stuff.
It's just one of those movies.
You were like 7 years old when this happened, so... JK, LOL. July 4th is, of course, the United States Independence Day, and we celebrate that Independence Day by blowing up a bunch of fireworks, which is kind of crazy to think about it, because the people who are usually bothered most by fireworks blowing up are soldiers with post-traumatic stress disorder, so please keep that in mind this 4th, because you never know how you're going to affect a neighbor or something like that with an overzealous fireworks display.
Yeah.
I actually used to have a friend who used to have a show we'd go to, and his neighbor like came over and mentioned like, hey, can you guys maybe cut it a little bit short this year? Because he was not Iraq War, the Gulf War. He was a Gulf War vet. So his PTSD was triggered by that. So definitely want to give a shout out to the veterans who have served and let you know that we totally understand. And I hope everyone is respectful of that. But some bad shit also does happen on 4th of July. It is a holiday that has very high injury amounts. More so than Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are typically domestic violence because families get together and start fighting. These are usually accidents. So some dangerous stuff going on definitely qualifies as scary-ish. Some funny stuff as well. So that's going to be my topic this week. The funny stuff is mainly stuff that's happened to me that I will tell you about. And it's also dangerous, but it didn't end tragically. Thank the Lord. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start off with some lighthearted, quick, fun. The first one's kind of fun. The rest of them start to pick up in intensity, and then we'll finish out with the pretty intense one. So, quick flash into History Corner. I mentioned July 4th is our Independence Day, and the event that took place that day was the signing of the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. I do like bringing this up because I really think that this is cool. I remember learning about this in 6th grade. Shout out to Mr. Henderson, because he was a wonderful history teacher, and he really brought this up. So basically what happened, and I'm just going to paraphrase this down really fast, is a bunch of dudes wrote a letter, and again, I'm summarizing here, that said, "Dear King George, eat shit, love us, XOXO." And 56 people signed it. So most folks know that. They know it was a declaration saying, hey, we're the independent United States of America, and it was just declaring we're our own country, and that's why this is our Independence Day. The Revolutionary War, I think, was already being fought at this point, too. So this is just something that is a big day for Americans. What's interesting about this is that the first few folks that walked up signed the Declaration of Independence, pretty normal, and then a few folks walked up and they signed it a little bit small and kind of illegible. And this was, a big fucking deal. It's kind of scary because the king was going to see this thing and your name was going to be on it. So some guys were like, are these people serious right now? Like, they're going to sign it? Are they worried that the king's not going to be able to read it? And then they realize, that's why they're signing it like that. So the king won't know their names. They won't know who's on there. And then this guy walks up and signs his name nice and big.
He slapped his John Hancock on there.
He sure fucking did. It was way bigger than anyone else. His signature, you can look at it if you want, is as big as the header at the top of the document. It's bigger than all the other text because he wanted to make sure his name was big enough to read. And that kind of convinced more people to actually put their name to this thing in ways you could read it. So shout out, 4th of July shout out to John Hancock for exuding significant big dick energy when it was needed the most. It's one of my favorite moments in history. A historical side note too, something I ask myself all the time, I always have when discussing founding fathers is, was he a slave owner with John Hancock? And I realized I don't know that. So the answer to that is yes. He owned 3 slaves that he had actually inherited from a family member's passing through the will. It was a very common thing for enslaved human beings to actually be bequeathed in a will to another person. When John Hancock passed away, his will stated that those 3 enslaved human beings were to be freed, which they were. So the answer is yes, but they were freed when he died, per his will. So that's pretty cool to see. Another thing that I knew about John Hancock that got me thinking about this, and this is a cool story. I know I'm a little bit deep in the history corner. John Hancock was the governor of Massachusetts. There were 3 black guys who were kidnapped from Massachusetts and taken halfway across the world to the West Indies and put to work as slaves. And when he found out about this, he wrote a letter to the governor of the West Indies Islands and said, those are free Americans you have. Send them back here right fucking now. And they did. So they got sent back because he sent that letter basically threatening, you kidnapped Americans and we will come get them. And so they sent them back, and they lived out the rest of their days as free men. So I always thought that was a cool story. So figured I'd share that. But let's go ahead and jump out of History Corner and jump into 4th of July stuff. I will say, too, while we get started, we have a Shiba Inu who's been a little bit under the weather in the office with us. So if you hear whining or barking or digging on the carpet, that is her in the background. I'll do my best to edit it out. And if you hear sniffing or exiting, that's definitely her. So, all right, let's jump into some of these. So I'll start out light. When I was pretty young, before I was the age where I could actually set off fireworks, we used to go see fireworks shows. And I think that's pretty common. Most folks know a good spot near where you're growing up or where you live to go see fireworks on the 4th of July or near the 4th of July. There's a ton of places near Lake Michigan that have huge shows that are really fun to go watch. And those shows have so much firepower, it's kind of crazy to think about what would happen if they all went off at once. And that is exactly what did happen in San Diego in 2012. So they had an 18-minute show they had prepared, and due to a technical glitch with their computer system, which is supposed to time out when each individual thing would fire off, all of the fireworks wound up going off simultaneously. So
was it just a big explosion?
It wasn't actually. There's a video. You can watch this video online. It was 18 minutes worth of fireworks that went up and lit up the night like daytime. It was a giant just display of random things, random effects that were all kind of canceling each other out. No one was hurt, but here's the scariest part of this event. It wound up taking 18 seconds. Instead of being 18 minutes, it was 18 seconds long, and it cost the taxpayers $400,000.
Oh, what a waste.
That's a pretty big technical glitch. So I thought that one was funny. I wanted to bring that one up. That's a quick one. So, I will say growing up, I enjoyed fireworks way too much. Having a day that was designated to just blowing shit up was just a beyond joy for me. And that continued into my young adult life as well. But you always heard stories, at least I did growing up, about a friend or a friend of a friend or a kid from the next town over who had blown up a firework, with their hand wrapped around it. and lost a finger or lost his hand or something like that. And I really started to think as I got older, it was a cautionary tale. There was a rumor and maybe someone got hurt, but it was probably never that serious. And there are certain fireworks out there that are illegal because of their, like...
Danger zones?
They're danger zones. Their potential destructive power, basically. And sometimes fireworks safety winds up being taught to us through sports role models. And the 4th of July in 2015 was no exception. It was actually really bizarre because of the fireworks accidents that occur all over the country on the 4th of July. 2 separate active NFL players, one of which was a multi-Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl champion, wound up having incidents where they lost fingers by quote-unquote playing with fireworks. Jason Pierre-Paul, who was a New York Giant at the time, he had gone to the Pro Bowl at least twice and won the Super Bowl once at that point, who's a defensive end who still plays, who's still really good.
Really?
He's for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now, and he won the Super Bowl last year, too, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Does he get custom gloves?
He does, actually. He wound up having an incident with fireworks where he blew off his right index finger. I will say, I remember hearing about this and thinking, like, he'll be okay, because, like, it's one finger, like, he'll be fine with 9 fingers to tackle people still, because he's still a really big guy. And today was the first time I looked up pictures of his hand post-accident and, like, right after the accident, too. And it is so fucking gruesome. It is gross. It's like, I like, picture what I would imagine, like, putting my hand around a firecracker would be. But this is, like, he must have had something custom made that for whatever reason he had in his hand because...
It blew the meat off his hand.
It blew his finger, like, so fucking bad. It blew it up so bad they had to amputate it almost immediately. And then his index finger is, like, gone. His middle finger is a stub, so it has about 1.5 knuckles. And then his ring finger and his pinky finger are super swollen and will stay that way due to the damage inside. So they look like sausage links right before they explode. Or like a baby's thighs before the skin grows too much and they have like those little lines. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen like an infant who just eats a lot. But it looks so horrific. And they played it down so much in the media when they're like, he lost a single finger. It's like, I don't know how he has any function in his hand. The injury was so gruesome that even though the pictures online are plentiful, I will only be able to post a picture of his hand now because I can't even post a picture of his hand when he first started playing again because it still looked so bad. But
well,
yeah,
I mean, his hand was a
gloves.
bloody mess. It was just awful.
I
remember when it happened and everyone was well, not everyone, but, you know, news and stuff was posting about it. And I was just... It was disgusting. It's
not even as much of a bloody mess as I thought it would be, as it was like a charred mess. Like his skin in certain areas is just like completely destroyed. Yeah, this is a really gross part of the show. But it was just super brutal. So that happened to him.
So y'all should be safe with your fireworks.
Be safe. Don't put your hands around fireworks. And then at the exact same time, like maybe a few states away, another defensive end for the Bucks at that time, who's no longer in the league, named C.J. Wilson, blew off 2 of his fingers, his index finger and his middle finger, fucking around with fireworks.
Man, those are the best ones.
I don't know about that, but like you still got your thumb. Like that would almost look like a shock bra permanently if you blew those 2 fingers off. But it's got to be super upsetting to have that happen, and to have it happen to such high-profile NFL players on the same exact 4th of July. It's like that was a particularly dangerous and cursed 4th of July for football players that year. And accidents really do happen to everyone. It's not just high-profile people or celebrities or cautionary tales. You really have to be careful on 4th of July. And here's a good example of what I'm talking about. So when I got to around, I think, 9 or 10, probably around 10 is when I was allowed to start blowing off bigger fireworks and just like firecrackers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And slowly I started taking over like the mortars that we would launch. And you'd have mortar tubes set out in the lawn and everything, like way far out away from the house. And we would do that, me and my brother and a few of our other cousins. So I think I was around 14 or 15 when this happened. And the 4th was still my favorite holiday at the time. We'd have this huge party, tons of amazing food, skirt steak all day. And then
we need to buy that soon.
We do need to go buy that because we're totally doing that again this year. And then we blow off fireworks until like the wee hours of the night. Lots of folks would stay and watch it. Our neighbors would come out and set up lawn chairs and they'd watch it too. They wouldn't even set off their own fireworks.
Oh, that's cool.
It was super fun. I really, really enjoyed the 4th of July. And we had something in our backyard, which I think is kind of one of the more hillbilly things that we had. We had a burning garbage can. So we had a spot specifically by our fire pit for this big ass burning garbage can that was made to burn stuff in.
Okay.
And it's not like a small garbage can. It's like one of the ones you see in the movies, like that Bruce Wayne warms his hands over when he gets like ready to leave Gotham. It's huge. So we would throw a bunch of stuff in there. If we were doing lawn work or something like that, we would throw like the refuse that we could burn it either in the fire pit or in the burning garbage can to make sure that it'd be gone.
Okay.
And we had moved it. We had relocated it to be further away from the fireworks zone so that we could toss all of our refuse for like wrappers or whatever that we could actually burn into it at the end of the night. And sometimes we would light it like earlier so we could toss stuff into it throughout the night. So it wouldn't be just this giant pile of stuff that we'd be trying to light on fire. Because you don't want, like, stuff to blow away. You know what I mean?
Did you ever try to light fireworks with that fire?
No. We've done it on accident. And then I know one time someone threw something in there on purpose.
Oh, no.
While it was going. And it just winds up creating a bunch of ash. And sometimes stuff will jump out of the top of it. So you don't want that to happen. But on this particular 4th of July, I was grabbing some stuff up off the ground. Because some of the younger kids that had come over that were either like younger cousins or whatever were already blowing stuff off. And I was just walking to the back to toss some of that stuff into the burning garbage can because it hadn't been lit yet, but I want to make sure that the yard is fairly clean because the next day cleaning is a pain in the ass. Because like every bottle rocket and mortar that you sent up comes down somewhere, and in the morning you look out back and it looks like a battle has happened in your backyard because there's so much debris. So I'm taking my time and making sure this is all getting cleaned up. And I walk by this burning garbage can, toss some stuff in it, and I think, like, I wonder how much is already in there. Because the sun's not even close to down, like, half the people aren't even here yet. So I peek over the garbage can, like, into it, and it turns out my brother had already primed the burning garbage can with gasoline and walked away to go get something to light it. Because he's like, we should probably start it early because it's already getting full. Because it's about half full at that point. And something I tossed in there had an ember in it. I'm pretty sure it was a sparkler stick that was still, like, red hot. Or maybe even still sparking. So as soon as I leaned over this, I kind of had the thought, is that gas I smell? And as soon as I thought that, like a split second later, this wind just blows out of the fucking burning garbage can along with this huge whoosh of air. And I lean away as quickly as I could, but I've basically put my face over this burning garbage can as it lit on fire. So as I back up, I'm like, shit, like, I hope I still have eyebrows and eyelashes. And I'm like, brushing at my face to try and check and see. And like, if you've ever burned hair, like if you've ever been grilling or like accidentally put your arm over an open fire and just been far enough away where it doesn't burn you, but it curls your hair, you get those like little wisps of burnt hair. They stink and they're really hard to detach. And I had so many of them in my eyebrows and I felt them on my eyelashes. And as I'm like feeling my face, I feel something like stick to the side of my head. And there was a clear plastic bag in there that something had been brought in, and it shot out of the garbage can because of the airflow when it went off, and half of it lit on fire. And as it burned, it was like floating down, and it was melting, and it stuck to the side of my head on my hair. God.
So you're saying you could have been totally scarred by that thing.
And it sticks to my hair, and I start smacking it off and putting myself out. I throw it back into the burning garbage can, and I run inside. And when I run inside, everyone's like, did you blow yourself up? Is that what just happened? Like, everyone's like almost making fun of me about it. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Fuck off. And I run upstairs and I take a shower because I'm like, I have this crap in my hair. And I distinctly remember taking this shower and like running my hand through my hair and like feeling the dried shards of plastic that had already like stuck into my hair.
Yeah.
Where it's been burned and melted and just like ripping it off. And it was so painful and letting it all wash down the drain. And when it was done, basically I had lost around half my eyebrows. My eyelashes had been reduced to about a third of the length they previously had been. And my bowl cut was the most uneven bowl cut you could ever imagine. So I just wore a hat for the rest of the night. And I'm pretty sure I got rid of the bowl cut. It went to like super short, like 2 days after that. And I just remember thinking back to that being like, I legitimately could have had something permanently like messed up on me for life. I could have like a scar on the side of my face from where like melting plastic.
You could be the Phantom of the Opera.
I could be. You never know. I mean, I probably wouldn't sing that well, but it could have been something that bad. And I think about that instance, and then I'll give you one more instance from my youth. So I was a little bit older when this happened. My brother and I were very enthusiastic about fireworks, as I've mentioned, and enthusiastic enough. And I checked, and I'm not sure what the statute of limitations is on this sort of thing, but it was over 2 decades ago, so I'm hoping that's enough, because we used to create our own fireworks. I've mentioned this on a live show before, but I've never told the whole audience about it.
Okay.
Specifically because I'm like, I'm not too sure if anyone's going to turn me in, but I don't think they actually can. So essentially what we would do is we would find like black powder or gunpowder, or we'd empty out fireworks and we'd create our own stuff in different containers.
Wow.
And things like that. We had fuse that we would use, and we would just make custom stuff mainly to be loud. We were just looking for stuff to be loud, not so much as destructive, but noisy. So we made some stuff, and then we had the brilliant idea this particular year that we should take a propane tank, like the kind that you would use on on like the tabletop grills, you know.
This sounds just like a horrible idea already.
It's like the size of like a tumbler. It's not a propane tank that you would attach to like a full grill. You know what I'm talking about?
It's like the camping ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were going to attach one of our custom-made fireworks to it to see if we could blow it up. And we took it out into a field, and we used to do this thing where we would take like the end of a cigarette, not the filter, but the actual stuff that you would smoke, and we would tuck it onto the fuse, and we would light that part, and it would slowly like burn down and light the fuse. It gives you plenty of time. It's like a time fuse, so you can get away. And we would do that. So we decided that's what we were going to do for this, and we walked away from it, and we're standing away from this field, and we're watching, and then all of a sudden we start to see smoke, which we know is the actual fuse, not just the cigarette. And then we hear boom, and as soon as we hear it, the firework had actually cracked the weld on the tank. It didn't blow it up, but it cracked it, and the propane started to leak out like furiously. And so it started to spiral, and it shot straight up in the air like a rocket.
Oh my god.
And it's just leaving this like spiral up into the sky like a slinky made of cloud. And it just went higher and higher and higher and higher. And then finally it ran out of propane and like collapsed back into the field. And we all agreed it was the coolest thing we had literally ever fucking seen. And so me and my brilliance, I was like, you know, it'd be really cool is if when that happened, it lit on fire. Because if it would have lit on fire and shot into the sky as a fireball, it probably would have gone further.
Wow.
So we decided we're going to try it again, but we're going to put a second explosive with a slightly longer fuse in it so the time will be delayed. And hopefully once it's in the sky, we can get it to ignite. So we go through that. We go back to the field. We walk it out even further. We light the fuses, or we light, I should say, the slow burning cigarettes. And we go back and we wait and we wait and we wait. And nothing's happening. We wait like 3 times as long as we waited the first time. And at this point, we're deciding that, okay, something screwed up. The cigarettes didn't stay lit. Just go out there and get it. We're not going to mess with this anymore. So one of my brother's friends goes to go retrieve it. And it's a really long walk. And as he's getting closer, we're really starting to feel the tension. Like, this could be a big mistake. This could go terribly wrong.
Absolutely.
So,
anytime you're playing with fire and gas. Yeah.
So
sounds like a horrible idea.
My brother yells for him, like, hey, like, just come back. Like, we're just going to leave it. And he turns around and you see this face. And everyone's seen this face at some point when you're talking to someone, they don't hear you. It's the, huh? Face where they're like, I didn't hear you. And it's communicated perfectly. And as soon as he turns around and makes that face, we see smoke behind him. And it's the fuses. And we know immediately that thing's about to explode and he's right fucking next to it. And one of my brother's friends who's with us, who's not the one out in the field, who was always, for the most part, very, very dumb, just screamed out, down!
Oh my god.
And as soon as he screamed it, the guy who's out in the field, without hesitation, just dove through the air like he's in a fucking John Woo movie and he's diving away from an explosion.
God.
Like in Face Off or Broken Arrow, which are both John Woo movies. And as he's floating through the air, we hear the boom from the explosion and the hissing again. And he slowly starts to float down into the field. And as we're hearing the hissing, it starts to lift up off the ground, but it's not going straight up this time. It's going sideways. And it starts to spiral and it shoots right through the space he was standing. But he had dove out of the way and laid on the ground. And this thing basically just shot further into the field to the point where we're like, we're never going to get it. If we had a quad, we could have driven out to it or something. But there's no fucking way we would have ever found it. The second explosion didn't go off. We think the first one did. And it knocked the cigarette off the other one. Or it just completely knocked the other firework off of it. And, like, we're screaming and running out there because we're afraid he might have gotten hit or something might have happened that we didn't see. And he slowly stands up out of the field and he's so far away, the only thing we hear is like, that was fucking awesome. And after that, we're like, we're just not going to fuck around with this shit anymore. And that was the last time we ever made, like, homemade fireworks. And I think it was, like, kind of agreed we should stop. We did, take stuff that was pre-made and like wrap it around something else and blow that up. And that wound up happening like later in my life. I wasn't even living at my parents' house, and I go back and still do the fireworks show. And behind my parents' house was a different field that was usually corn. But on occasion on the 4th of July, something wouldn't be planted, or for whatever reason things were not going well, and there would be like debris that could catch fire. And we definitely one time set our field on fire and had to go out there with water, with hoses and water to put it out. And it was like the middle of the night, and people that were neighbors were just fucking like screaming. It's like, we have it under control. No one needs to call the fire department. So it's a really good example of how even myself, who is an idiot and growing up was very dangerous, could have had something very serious happen. And it's not like just because I didn't have that happen that I avoided those situations. I just got really, really lucky.
Yeah, I'm going to say you definitely got really lucky, because could have been awful.
It could have been awful.
There's some things that you tell me, I'm like, so how do you still have both your eyes? Or like, how are you know what I mean? Like, how are you not dead right now?
I'm a very lucky guy.
It's just nuts.
Also, there's this feeling that I get sometimes where I'm like, ooh, do you guys feel that? I feel like death is here now. Like he's just watching, and we just like slowly pull away from the brink at the last second. But it could have been awful. And speaking of awful and crazy, it brings me to my last thing that I'm going to cover for this 4th of July special topic. So back on July 4th, 1900, that's right, 121 years ago, something a little bit crazy happened. So the 4th has always been a big bash for lots of cities, not just like friends and family, but cities really do have a huge celebration. I've been to celebrations on both coasts. I've been to celebrations in Northwest Indiana. I've been to celebrations in Louisville before, Las Vegas, of course, and it's always really, really fun to see how many people at once celebrate. I've always thought to myself, it'll be really cool to fly over the country, over a very densely populated part of the country.
On 4th of July.
On 4th of July. Because I'd love to see all the fireworks going off.
You know what we need? Private jet.
Oh, yeah. I was going with something more reasonable, but hey, private jet works too. So they didn't have those back in 1900. But they still had huge celebrations. And at the turn of the century, one of the most notable celebrations in the entire country was in the state of Washington, in Tacoma. And they had this huge celebration. It was the place to be. The capital of Washington, by the way, is Olympia, not Tacoma. But Tacoma was absolutely the place to go for the celebration on the 4th. They had actually been throwing this big bash for the last 60 years. They'd actually only been a state for a decade. But they've been throwing the celebration for the 4th of July for 60 years. So it's like that has been going on longer by 50 years than them being a state in general.
That's impressive.
So people would come from all over the region, not just within the state, for the big party, for the big show, for the parade. Even the governor would go to Tacoma to be part of that parade because he knew this is the biggest bash. It's going to be super fun. Let's go celebrate. All in all, in 1900, they'd have around 50,000 people descend on the city to watch the show, which as of right now is a huge crowd, you know? Imagine how many people were already on the West Coast in 1900 to make 50,000 folks migrate into one city to watch the celebration and be part of the parade. And it's men and women and children. People bring their whole families to this thing to watch it. And they would travel in various different ways that were available to them in 1900, like they could walk, they could take a horse or a carriage, or they could take a trolley. Trolleys were a thing. And one such trolley was bound for Tacoma, and it was making its normal stops, picking up passengers along the way, as per usual, although it was not exactly usual. Lots of folks were boarding, more than normal. So stop after stop after stop, more and more folks get on this trolley until it eventually has 141 people on it.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people for one trolley. The max capacity for this trolley was 45 people. So it's over 3 times the maximum capacity. One of the folks who was on the trolley later stated it was so crowded he could not put his hand in his pocket when he was going to reach into his pocket to grab a dime to buy something. He couldn't do it because he was so crammed in. So the trolley reaches Commerce Street, which at the time I believe is called C Street, and it executes a standard safety stop at the top of a hill. Comes to a stop. It's something that the driver, they have a different name, but the driver has to do.
Like a conductor or something?
It's very specific. It's like trolley tier or something like that. But you can just call him the driver. So it does stop. It stops right there, and slowly but surely, it starts moving forward over this hill. And with it as crowded as it was, and as heavy as it was, it starts picking up speed very, very quickly.
No.
So the driver throws on the brakes of the trolley, but it just keeps going like nothing has happened. And he realizes the urgency, and immediately he switches the engine to reverse to try and get the trolley to go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And puts it at full speed. And even that's not stopping it at all. They are just going down. There's nothing they can do about it. And this is a trolley. If anyone's ever seen a trolley, it's just one car, open sides, there's seats on it, but like it's exposed to the elements for all, all intents and purposes. And they typically don't go more than 10 miles per hour. And this thing is shooting down this hill at 50 miles an hour. That's super fast. Imagine trying to jump out of a car at 50 miles an hour, and then take into consideration this is a time where no one's ever ridden in a car, you know? No one's probably ever gone that fast, and now they're having to think like, should I jump out of this thing to avoid what's going to happen? The folks who had ridden the trolley before jumped off. They're like, I'm not going any further. This is really going to hurt, but I'm getting off of this thing. They knew what the passengers who were on the trolley for the first time did not know, is that a 90-degree turn was approaching. And it turned to avoid a spot called Gallagher's Gulch. So it's definitely a scenario that you would expect to see in a movie where someone rushes in and saves the day. However, that's not what happened here. So when it hits the corner on this 90-degree turn, the trolley does try and make the turn initially, but the speed and the weight were just too much, and it barrel rolls off the track, across the street, and into the gulch. And it just plunges downwards.
That's horrifying.
So the people nearby rush to help those who jumped off the trolley with their injuries, and some of the nearby people and the emergency workers head to the gulch, and it's just the most gruesome scene you could ever imagine. Bodies just littered everywhere as this thing continues to tumble further and further down. When it's all said and done, 44 men, women, and children were found dead.
Oh my God.
Along the way down into the gulch. So the site of the accident was said to be one of the most gruesome things anyone has ever laid their eyes on, because it was just bodies scattered like a war zone. It was, and remains to this day, one of the worst transit accidents in American history.
Really?
Yeah. So obviously there's more of those accidents now when we have freeways and pileups and things like that.
Yeah.
But 121 years later, it's still very, very high up on those lists. And it happened on 4th of July. It happened because
it's a really big malfunction.
It's a big malfunction. They found out later that the brakes wouldn't even have stopped the car at maximum capacity, that they were not rated, and it introduced a bunch of safety regulations into how mobile vehicles essentially would be made safe, that were followed in the city, but not even at the state and the federal level completely ignored it, so that vehicles could be made more readily available in the next 20 years or so.
Wow. To
the public. And if you ever have read the history on like seatbelts and like when seatbelts came into being, it's like decades after the cars were invented. And there was so much propaganda behind how wearing seatbelts was un-American and how they'd actually hurt you more in an accident. Some people still believe that wearing a seatbelt is more dangerous for you in an accident. And like that is very similar to some of the stuff that happened after this particular trolley incident, when they're saying like, we should have brakes that can stop the cars. And they're like, but it'll cost so much money, which is what it all comes down to, which is pretty American for a tragedy to happen on 4th of July. But in the city of Tacoma, they took it very seriously after that. So that gulch is no longer there. I believe it's actually now a road. So I was reading through it and trying to find a picture of what it looked like. And every time I kept finding the location, it's like, oh, the city has kind of just overtaken this particular area. And the name of the gulch still exists in Montana, but it no longer exists in Tacoma, Washington. So
interesting.
Yeah. I was reading about this and I was like, this is horrific.
Yeah, it is horrific.
So I figured I'd end on a low note, but on the highest death total I could find.
Thanks for the really depressing 4th of July.
I don't know if it's depressing, but it's definitely morbid and fascinating, which is kind of what we're going for. So
yeah. All
right. Cool. Thanks. So before I move on into Robin's topic, we will go ahead and take a quick commercial break.
Welcome back to the not so brighter side of the episode, because this one is still depressing.
I was going to say, you were really on me about mine being depressing, but now we go into murder.
Yeah. So this week, like many weeks, is inspired by our amazing community. So like Adam was saying, Meadows posted this in our Spooky Friends group. He posted something about the Tylenol murders, and I've heard so much about it that I thought we'd already done it. I had to actually ask Adam. I'm like, have we done this before? Because I'm pretty sure we have, but it's because I've just watched so many documentaries or listened to so many podcasts that have talked about it that I felt like I covered it just because I've heard about it before.
I've heard about it a bunch. I have no idea what any of the details are. In fact, when I saw the topic pop up in the Spooky Friends group, I didn't even read the post. I was so sure we were going to cover this in the next couple weeks and that you would likely take it.
Yeah.
I was like, I will let Robin tell me all about it.
Yeah, I guess we haven't covered it, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But what isn't hilarious are these poisonings that occurred in Chicago in 1982. So, y'all remember 1982, right?
Oh, wow. Stealing my bit.
So, Eye of the Tiger, I Love Rock and Roll, a whole bunch of other
There's some really
iconic
good fucking songs. Eye of the Tiger made its way into Rocky 3, the song that inspires him. I Love Rock and Roll is just fucking incredible.
Yeah, a lot of good music came out in 1982. Blade Runner came out. Sophie's Choice.
Wow, I've never seen Sophie's Choice.
I've never seen Sophie's Choice either, and I don't think I could.
I hear it's a feel-good movie.
Yeah, feel-good movie of the year. No, so a lot of good movies came out. A lot of good movies, good music. AT&T was ordered to break up their monopoly that year because AT&T used to own the telephone market.
I remember being a kid, one of my earliest memories, they were still going through breaking up their monopoly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it on the radio driving with my parents, and they were trying to explain to me.
My parents have had AT&T since, like, the beginning, man. I've never, I don't remember having any other phone service other than AT&T growing up my entire life.
I have Verizon, so.
Oh.
They're, like, main competitors.
I still have AT&T. Okay, the first episode of Late Night, hosted by David Letterman, is 1982.
I believe David Letterman was supposed to take over after Johnny Carson retired, and he wound up getting his own show because they wound up giving that to Jay Leno instead.
So, David Letterman did Late Night on NBC up until 1993, and then he took over The Late Show on CBS. So he moved networks.
I think CBS made the show specifically to compete with Jay Leno's version of The Tonight Show because Johnny Carson was leaving. But I don't know. Johnny Carson, I think, was still hosting it when I was live. That's a completely different fucking topic. The late night wars were a big thing.
I don't know anything about late night shows. I never watched any of them. So, I watched, oh man, what is that horrible show that was on Comedy Central? The Man Show. I used to watch that.
When it was Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
I remember it being really funny, and then Doug Stanhope and Joe Rogan took over.
People are.
You'd never heard of Joe Rogan before?
No.
He's the biggest podcast on the planet.
What's his podcast?
It's just called the Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
It's probably good for you. I remember that he took it over with another guy, and I just realized wow, this is not good.
No, I've only watched the beginning seasons of that show. I don't know any other hosts other than
Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, that's the only people I know. Anyway, E.T. came out in 1982.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that happened in 1982. And great year for movies, great year for music, but not so much for the Chicago metropolitan area that got struck with a wave of fear that year. And kind of subsequent years, I think. At least for me, it would have been. It was something that you'd hope would never happen in your lifetime, but it did. It began on September 29th, 1982. Feeling sick, a 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman was given some Tylenol to relieve her symptoms by her parents. So her parents were like, here, take some Tylenol, you'll be good. Shortly after, she was found collapsed on the bathroom floor. She was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Wow.
No one realized what had caused her death yet. No one had any idea. Then that same day, in a neighboring suburb of Chicago, a 27-year-old man named Adam Janis died after taking Tylenol as well. Then two other members of his family, his brother Stanley and his sister-in-law Teresa died after taking some Tylenol because they had headaches from grieving, the other guy's death.
I thought they were all taking it at the same time, like they were all sick, but
no,
it happened after the fact.
Yeah, so that guy died. They were at his house, probably dealing with all the stuff that they have to deal with after somebody dies, and they take Tylenol from that same bottle and die. So those two also are poisoned. And then within days of that instance, a Mary McFarland, a Paula Prince, and a Mary Reiner all died under the same circumstances.
This is a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this is way worse than my trolley car.
No, your trolley car had 40-something people die.
You're starting out pretty quick. That's all I'm saying.
That's it, though. That's not it. There's more. But with so many people dying after taking this Tylenol, because when the firefighters or paramedics and whatever, they're doing their job, right? They're like, what did they take? What is going on that we can kind of figure out what's going on here, right? They go into an investigation and they start performing tests. And what they find is that within these Tylenol capsules is cyanide. So these bottles are filled with cyanide. This revelation leads to mass warnings being spread throughout media, and then there's no internet, right? So people go on, there's internet, I'm sure. In 1982, there's no internet? Oh, no. My God.
Not like we have it now. If there was, it was just like peer-to-peer connections, and maybe the military was using it,
okay.
But like email didn't pop up like until I was born.
Well, people were out patrolling neighborhoods because that's all you could do. So I'm sure they would call each other and stuff like that and say like, no, don't stop using Tylenol. But people would go out on patrols through the neighborhoods. They would just warn people to stay away from Tylenol. People were able to rule out the manufacturers themselves as the culprit because they found the tampered bottles from different pharmacies. And all the deaths occurred within the Chicago area. So if it did come from a main manufacturer, it would be more widespread than that. What they concluded was that someone had bought bottles of Tylenol from different stores. And over the span, they apparently, supposedly, did this over the span of several weeks, then replaced put cyanide in the capsules, replaced the bottle with the cyanide capsules, and then put the bottles back on the shelves. So along with the 5 bottles that resulted in these deaths, there were other contaminated bottles that they were able to find too.
Wow, holy shit. Imagine going to the store and being like, you know what? I think I'll get Advil. And you didn't know that saved your life for like that one instance in time.
Growing up, I think Bayer was a big thing too, because it's like Bayer will, if you take a Bayer a day or something, it'll prevent a heart attack or something like that.
I remember hearing when I was younger, I think they just stopped saying this, but you should take a Bayer if you're experiencing heart attack symptoms, because it could thin your blood and save your life. Oh. And I think they say not to do that anymore, but.
Interesting. I did not know that.
I'll let Captain Fake Eye let us know about that.
Yeah, Captain Fake Eye will tell us. So they find more bottles of this contaminated Tylenol, right? The U.S. Food and Drug Administration tests over 1 million capsules around the country and find that there are no other tainted bottles outside the Chicago area. Johnson & Johnson, the people that make Tylenol, they warn hospitals and distributors, even going as far as to halt production completely. And halt any advertising of Tylenol. They stop all of that. I saw some websites were like, it's Johnson & Johnson's one of their greatest PR campaigns because they did everything that they should have. But I'm sure there's people out there that are like, they took too long to do stuff.
A lot of people died. If they got the information this was happening and immediately took action, then yeah, they did the right thing.
So October 5th, 1982, a week later, they issue a nationwide recall for Tylenol products. So it takes a week, but that's a lot to get done, I don't know if some corporate guy out there is just like, no, all we got to do is say recall. Y'all send it back. I don't know how that works, They're
literally stopping production, advertising, and telling everyone who has bought their product to send it back.
Yeah.
So that is like 3 amazingly huge steps.
Yeah. So it's an estimated 31 million bottles of Tylenol that they had to have recalled. It cost the company over $100 million.
Wow.
And that's $268 million in 2020 money. Not that 2020 money is much different than, 1982 money.
Translate 2020 money to 2021 money.
I don't even know. Is it the
probably
same?
almost identical, yeah.
But it was definitely a smart decision for the company in the long run to do that. I mean, you're losing a lot of money at the time, but what are you going to... You could get put out of business, for something like this. What I had no idea about was that this is actually an ongoing case. Like, it's still going.
So they never solved this?
Yep.
Wow. So, I've been waiting for you to tell me about the suspects that were identified on security camera footage and how they were arrested.
So there were a number of suspects. At first, there was a man named James William Lewis, and he wrote a letter to Johnson & Johnson and demanded that they pay $1 million for the cyanide murders to stop. A look into this guy's background revealed that he kind of led this troubled life. He was abandoned when he was a baby. He was adopted when he was 3. When he was a kid, he kind of had anger management issues. He had violent outbursts. He, at one point, had chased his stepmother, or not his stepmother, but his adopted mother around with an axe. There was another point where he was charged with assault for breaking his adopted father's ribs. So, he had issues. He was also diagnosed with schizophrenia. While placed in a psychiatric hospital, he attempted to take his own life by overdosing on over-the-counter medications like Tylenol type stuff, right? According to Lewis, his suicide attempt and violent outbursts were part of a plan put forth by his family to avoid being drafted into the army during the Vietnam War. That was his logic on why he was violent growing up and all this stuff. He did well in college, though. He went to the University of Missouri. He even met his wife, Leanne, there. They got married. They settled down in Kansas City, where they became bookkeepers for a tax accounting firm. After an argument with the owner for this firm, though, they leave the firm. They start their own. And their first client is a 72-year-old retired truck driver named Raymond West. On July 24th, 1978, this guy goes missing. All that is found is a note that is on the Lewis's accounting firm's letterhead. So this note is written on their letterhead that states West is out of town and to ask Lewis for details. That's what this note says, which I think is super sketchy. And when police enter West's home, they find another note on that same letterhead found on the coffee table. And this note states that West was sleeping and not to wake him until after 1 p.m. Which, why? It's like you put this note to expect someone to walk in and see, you know what I mean? It's weird. Another search is performed 3 weeks later after this, and it leads to the discovery of West's dismembered body wrapped up in sheets and trash bags in the attic. So the missing guy ends up dismembered in the attic.
This is pretty fucked up.
A search of Lewis's home leads to the discovery of rope, garbage bags, and checkbooks that all belong to Wes, that truck driver, which is super duper sketch. So Lewis is arrested, charged for West's murder, but the case is dismissed because there's not enough evidence.
Wow.
It's all circumstantial, and therefore they can't charge him for it. So he gets away with it. He gets away with that murder.
They have no other suspects whatsoever.
Nope. So when it came to actually nailing him for this crime, the crime of poisoning all these people, there wasn't anything that really linked him to these crimes. They had his fingerprints already because he'd already gone through the system, right? For the being charged with that murder. But they just didn't match anything that was involved. He and Leanne were also living in New York City at the time, which didn't make sense because it happened in Chicago.
Right.
So, though he wasn't charged for these poisonings, he did end up being convicted later for extortion and served 13 years out of a 20-year sentence for extortion.
That's a lot of years for extortion. Jesus.
He was paroled in 1995, which is a long time ago now that it's 2021.
1 year before the Revolutionary War against the aliens.
God damn it, babe. I've never seen it. I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about Independence Day, man.
Welcome to Earth.
Adam says that so much. That's like the only line I know from that movie. That's it. I don't, and the way he says it too. I can't even.
It's funny because Will Smith does not say it that way. He just says "Welcome to Earth," but it's just like I've heard so many people say it in increasingly derpy ways that it's become "Welcome to Earth."
I hate you. So later on, one of the news channels in Boston reports that there were actual court documents released in 2009 that showed the DOJ, or Department of Justice, their investigators concluded that Lewis was the culprit, but they just didn't have enough evidence to charge him, which seems weird to me. It's like, you conclude that it's him, but you have no evidence to prove that it's him. It just doesn't make sense. Just because he writes a letter. I mean, he has schizophrenia. He could just be saying whatever.
Right.
In January 2010, both Lewis and his wife submit DNA and fingerprints, again, leading to no connection to the case. People are just trying to pin it on them, right? But they can't find anything, even though this couple is sketch as fuck. So a letterhead on the letterhead on the $1 million letter, ransom letter, extortion letter, traces back to a travel agency that Leanne, his wife, used to work for. And this led some to believe that them doing this was just an attempt at revenge against her former boss, because her former boss owed them money after the travel company went out of business and closed down. So she's trying to recuperate losses or something, right? I don't know. Lewis's handwriting also matches the second letter that gets sent to President Ronald Reagan that warned that the poisonings would continue if there wasn't a federal taxation overhaul. He even threatened crashing remote-controlled airplanes into the White House.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, I reiterate that despite his doing all these things, he was not convicted for any of those crimes. There's another suspect at the time named Roger Arnold. He was investigated but was cleared of the killings. The media attention led to his nervous breakdown.
Oh, no.
And during this, he blamed someone named Marty Sinclair, who was just a bar owner. In 1983, almost a year later, he shot and killed someone named John Stanisha. It's probably not how you say his name. I'm so sorry. But the reason why he shot him was he mistook him for Sinclair. So this guy, John, had nothing to do with any of it. But he mistook this guy.
So this guy gets accused of it. He has a mental breakdown because of how much he's being portrayed in the media as the possible culprit.
Yeah.
He then blames a bartender, right?
Yep. Not bartender. I think he owns it.
A bar owner, excuse me, as for being the reason he's been accused, and then accidentally kills someone who just looked similar at the moment.
Yeah.
Trying to kill this bartender, owner, whatever, bar owner. That's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah. So Arnold was convicted of second-degree murder in January of 1984 and served 15 of his 30-year sentence. He died in 2008. So a lot of these people seem to have passed away or have already served a lot of jail time. Then the last notable suspect is Lori Dan, and they poisoned and shot a few people in 1988. Apparently it was like some rampage through Winnetka, Illinois. Like, she just poisoned and shot a bunch of people, but no connection was found to these poisonings. During 1983, the FBI releases information about the first and youngest victim, Mary Kellerman, and their press release and stuff was approved by the family. It just gave information of where she was buried, stuff like that. Their logic was that if they told the public where she was buried, the culprit would show up at this gravesite. But despite it being under 24/7 surveillance for months, no suspects showed up or anything. I'm sure people came by to like pay their respects, but none of them were suspects, apparently. In 2009, federal agents investigated Lewis again, and on May 19th, 2011, the FBI requested DNA from Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Wow.
In connection to the Tylenol murders as well. So they were still trying to figure stuff out. They thought that there might have been a connection as his first 4 crimes were committed in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs from 1978 to 1980. But he denies ever having worked with cyanide. So they're still trying to figure stuff out as recently as 2011, which is crazy. After these poisonings, there were hundreds of copycat occurrences. They involved Tylenol and other over-the-counter medications. In 1986, 3 others died from tampered gelatin capsules. If you guys don't know what those are like the little clear pills.
This must be why like the boxes are like so hard to seal now, and they have like the thing
we'll
on the
get
top.
there. We'll get there.
Sorry.
So, a woman died in Yonkers, New York after taking some cyanide-laced Tylenol. In Washington, Susan Snow and Bruce Nichol died after ingesting laced Excedrin, which I love too. I don't love that they died. I love Excedrin.
I was going to say, what the fuck?
No, I love taking Excedrin, migraine, that stuff. If you have like the worst headache
it'll put a stop to it.
Yeah, it works so well. It's great. Unless you have like one of those, migraines that you need like medical grade stuff for it. Yeah, I don't have those. But Excedrin migraine works wonders. Nichol's wife, Stella, was convicted of the murder of Susan Snow and Bruce Nichol, probably because they were sleeping together or something, and she was pissed, and she's just like, murder.
Wow.
On October 5th, 1982, a man in California fell ill after taking some Tylenol that had been laced with strychnine.
Strychnine.
In this instance, 3 bottles were traced back to a local drugstore, which is just another copycat. Again, you could probably assume that Halloween that year was a lot of people skipping, going to strangers' houses and getting random candy. A lot of people were saying that Halloween for them was where people were just like, we're going to check every piece of your candy. That's it, though. I mean, you can't just, you know what I mean?
I know I've covered this in the past, and I'm pretty sure that I did confirm that every single instance of poison candy or razor blades or screws or whatever the case may be being found in candy was perpetrated by the child's parents and not a random person that they were trick-or-treating to. Mm-hmm. Every single one. So.
Well, someone poisoned a bunch of random Tylenol, so...
Yeah, I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm just saying when it comes to the Halloween candy thing, that's a bit
But
different.
it could happen. You know what I mean? And it's like that fear where it's like, okay, someone poisoned all these random bottles of Tylenol. Someone can just poison all this random candy. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I were a parent during this time, I would have been so paranoid. Like, I'll buy you your own bag of candy.
Right.
I'm not letting you go to strangers' houses and just gonna grab candy.
I think buying a bag of candy would have been more dangerous at this point since people are just like taking them, poisoning it, and returning it. So, I mean, I'm going to be super safe when we eventually have kids and be like, I'm going to eat all your Snickers, all your Twix, and all your Three Musketeers because they're the most likely.
So good.
They're the most likely to be poisoned as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to make sure to take that bullet.
You know, okay, this is a really big sidebar, but like, you know, for Halloween, there's like specific Halloween candy where it's like you don't really see it or you don't eat it outside of Halloween.
Like candy corn?
Like those boxes of Nerds. Outside of like Valentine's Day and Halloween, I don't eat Nerds. But they drop those small boxes of Nerds, man. That shit.
I mean, they do have Nerds outside of Halloween, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
they typically only appear around them.
Yeah, or like lemon heads. I don't eat them unless it's like in Halloween candy or whatever.
Smarties.
Oh, yeah, Smarties. Oh, man. Smarties are sweet tarts for you. I'm a Smarties, 100%. I don't like sweet tarts.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a hot take, and I know some people are going to be happy. Some people aren't. But Smarties and candy corn are the 2 worst candies ever made.
Shut the
I hate them
front
so
door.
much. I hate them.
I love Smarties so much. I freaking love Smarties.
Smarties is like someone tastes a sweet tart and like, let's make it taste like chalk instead.
Candy corn, I can only eat like a few of them, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Candy corn are just, I don't know.
I like candy corn. I just can't have too much candy corn. Anyway, that's not what this podcast is about.
We're dividing up our future kids' candy right now. They're not getting anything.
So these copycats were so bad that a company, Procter & Gamble, they had a medication called Encaprin, and they were forced to withdraw from the market because there were a bunch of hoaxes and stuff like that resulted in their drop in sales, where it was just like, we're not making this anymore.
It could have been corporate sabotage. They could have deliberately done this to make
Tylenol
or any of the other brands basically take a huge loss, because that's a substantial $250 million loss and the loss of life. You know, it's just insanity that something like this could happen and go completely unsolved.
Yeah. So because of all this, companies had to change things up. Johnson & Johnson, though having a steep drop in the market value, for their company, stuff like that. I don't know, stonks. They were able to rebound in less than a year. So it's like they had all this shit happen. They did cough out a bunch of money, but because they took the right steps, they bounced back. This dog keeps touching my chair. They bounced back really quickly. We still buy Tylenol. So it's obviously something that's still around.
I mean, I'd never fucking heard of this before, so.
They also came back with solid tablets instead of capsules. For those of you that are too young to know what capsules are, those are things that you could actually pull apart. So capsules you could pull apart and then the powdered medication inside. They
have gel tablets now. Don't they
do
still
have gel
capsules?
tablets.
I thought they still sell
some
capsules.
Some medications still come in capsules. I know some of our dog medication came in capsules. You can pull them apart. The powdered medication and stuff comes out. So what you can do is just fill it up with fucking cyanide, apparently, and then put them back in the bottle. And
where do you
never
even
know.
get cyanide to do this? That's got to be traceable too.
No, they crushed up a bunch of apple seeds.
I thought that was ricin, not cyanide.
I thought it's cyanide.
I don't know. I haven't watched Breaking Bad in a while, so.
Is that where you learn how to make your drugs?
No, that's where I learn how to poison people effectively.
I don't know, man. I have no clue about any of that stuff. I don't know where you would get cyanide. But yeah, I remember as a kid I used to pull those capsules apart for fun. I would take those little pills and kind of just pop them in half and the powders.
I was told never ever to do that.
Yeah, but see, I didn't have supervision. My parents were always working, so we would just do stupid shit. You have no idea.
All I did was create explosives, but you're over here fucking pulling pills apart and shit.
I mean, I have stuck stuff in electric sockets more times than I can count. I've licked chargers more times than I can count. Back in the day, before the chargers we have now, you would get a tingle if you stuck that charger to your tongue, or batteries. If you take a 9-volt or whatever and stick it on your tongue, yeah.
I've always thought that your breath tasted and smelled like rubber cement, so that makes a whole lot of sense now.
That's probably why I don't have a lot of brain cells either. Okay. So they also started implementing tamper-resistant packaging. So that's why there are seals, those foil seals on medicine bottles now that have to get peeled off or poked through. I don't know what you choose to do.
I prefer to peel, but it's easier to poke.
I poke and peel. So
poke and peel.
I poke through it and then I'll peel the foil off. Or there's the plastic that's on all the bottles as well that you have to break and peel off of the bottles too. There's even boxes now. It's really hard to try to make it look like you resealed the box perfectly.
Right.
There's no way you open a pill bottle box without fucking that thing up. It's crazy. And then they also made it so that tampering with medication also became a federal crime. This law so they put out a bill, some call it the Tylenol bill. I don't know what the name of the bill was, but it led to Stella Nickel, the woman that poisoned her husband and the Snow person, Susan Snow, I think her name was. She was sentenced to 90 years.
Wow.
For tampering with the medication.
All those other people were killing people and getting out in 15 years, and this
after this
tampered
law
with medication and she gets 90 years.
90 years.
Isn't this what carries over to perishable items and medications that are sold? And this is why all those fucking morons who are licking the ice cream and putting them back on the shelves.
They had to put in another law for the people licking the ice cream.
But they had something in place where they were able to, with a precedent previously set, charge them with something up to 100 years in jail. Because if you ever participate in a challenge where you do something like that, you're a fucking moron, and your challenge should be to slap yourself in the face.
That is disgusting.
It is disgusting.
That video of Ariana Grande where she's licking all the donuts, and so did you see that video?
No, I've never seen that. So this is a different thing now.
Her and one of the dancers or something, her boyfriend, they go to this bakery, right? Small bakery, not Krispy Kreme or something. It's just a small town bakery. She goes in, starts licking all the fucking donuts on all the trays that are sitting there. And so the baker comes out, takes those donuts and takes them to the back because they can't sell it anymore. And she gets pissed. She's like, what the fuck? Well, why?
She should be arrested. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And this all happens, of course, before COVID, and then COVID hits, and it's you disgusting pieces of crap. All I want to comfort myself in this time of COVID is fucking ice cream, and I have to worry that you're out here licking it.
Well, that's why
So
a lot of
annoying.
ice creams like
They now have the
Haagen-Dazs,
fucking
they have
peel
the
stuff
plastic
now.
peel stuff. I mean, Haagen-Dazs had that before the licking, but anyway. Again, the culprit for the main Tylenol murders still hasn't been found. Some think that it'll never happen because they have already either died or took their own life after those things happened. So maybe it's like, you know what I mean?
We can only hope they're dead. Is what it really comes down
Yeah.
to. That way they can't hurt anyone else.
Right. It's just a messed up thing, and I don't know why people do it.
Well, it was a very interesting topic, so
Yeah.
I won't shame you because it was so morbid, and it ends on a really weird note where the killer gets away, but I appreciate you telling it to us. I think it was really good.
Thanks.
So,
Sorry for all the tangents.
It's okay. I think it was really good because it shows you how many things were like looped into it that involved additional murder, which is just absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
So,
True crime plus.
indeed. Good stuff, Robin. All right, so I think that's just about everything we have for episode 185. I want to wish everyone who's going to be celebrating it a happy and safe 4th of July, which will be happening on Sunday. So you will not hear our wonderful voices
Sunday.
for a topic episode, at least, until 2 days after the 4th of July. So be safe, have fun. Aside from that, if you have a story you would like to send our way, it doesn't have to be about you murdering people with poison or 4th of July shenanigans. It can be about supernatural, paranormal, stuff like that. You can email storytime@scaryish.com. We'd be happy to read your story on the show, on the Storytime episodes that release on Fridays. It's going to be a fun time when we do the Storytime this week because we did Pasta Time last week, I'm pretty sure. We always love to hear from you folks. You can email storytime@scaryish.com. Hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/scariyishpodcast. Twitter is @scariyishpod and Instagram is @scariyishpodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/scaryish-podcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1, and at $1 you get ad-free episodes, which is great if you guys don't like ads.
Ad-free is the way to be.
And then if you're not into the monthly subscription type thing, you can also go to ko-fi.com/scaryish-podcast. All your donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup, kind of help us keep going, keep on creeping on if you will. And we really couldn't be here without you guys. You guys are the reason why we make this show every week and why we have live streams for you guys, why we are able to stream video games for you guys. We're really thankful.
Indeed. So thank you everyone who listens and supports us in all the various different ways. You mean the world to us, and we really do mean that. So I think that's everything we have. So go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and make sure to check any packaging for tampering before you eat it. Use it.
These outros are getting longer and longer.
Yep.
Bye.